Thank you, Samara, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, thank you. Let's get to it. Like, everyone's trying to hear, learn from us.
Mhm.
You retook step one. Tell us a little bit about that story, just briefly for everyone to know.
So I retook. So the first time I took step one was in April of this year,
Sure.
and it kind of during that time I felt like it was all too soon because I only had 6 weeks to prepare,
Yeah.
and I was kind of trying to go through as much as I can during those 6 weeks. I really didn't have an idea of
Mm,
like what to focus on. I was just kind of like my mindset was like trying to get as much as I can within each and every week, trying to do as much as I can, and that I feel like served me negatively
mm,
in a large part because it wasn't focused. Like I didn't really have a schedule made. It was just kind of doing New World questions, trying to get through as many New World as possible,
yeah.
doing a couple NBMEs along the way,
Uh-huh.
and that was kind of I guess where things kind of got rough for me in terms of the first attempt.
Okay. Okay.
The second attempt is where like eventually like getting the score back was its own struggle.
Yeah.
I think when you get your score back, you expect okay, like a lot of people pass, like I'll pass too, like it's not a big deal. After the test I felt really bad, but then eventually I'm like, you know what? I've heard so many people saying that they feel terrible after the test. I think hopefully I'll be okay. I mean, but then when I got my score back, it took at least, not gonna lie, at least a week or a couple of weeks for me to re-gauge and refocus because it's such a big setback. But ultimately, what you have to realize is that there's there's always going to be roadblocks, struggles in medical school, especially the path that we're on.
Yeah.
And
That's,
my message for anyone watching is just, you can if you just got your score, or if you're going through this right now, like you have to realize that you will, get to the point where you want to be eventually. It might take longer. You might have to go down a different road or
mm,
try it harder than, you know, but eventually you will get to that point where you feel happy you get that pass on step one. And that comes through dedication, that comes through making a schedule for your stuff, staying committed those 6 weeks. Also while having a balance in life because I during my second attempt I actually tried to like have more of a work-life balance, trying to at least a couple of days a week saying
mm,
okay, I'm not going to do anything. I mean, 5 of the 7 days I was working hard trying to do at least 8 hours,
mm,
but with my Saturday and Sunday I
mm,
was like I'm not touching anything.
mm,
And sometimes that works for people, sometimes that doesn't work for people. So it's like it's always you got to find your balance, but always have at least a day or 2 days where you just forget about it because your mind gets reset and you can go out at it the next week. It's
mm.
kind of you have to have a marathon kind of mindset. It's not like a sprint like most people think like, oh, I can just get everything if I keep working hard. Like it's ultimately a marathon and you have to serve your mind that way. So yeah.
That's a good answer. Showing like this, like medicine seems like, oh, I really push, push, push. You just get to next step. But there's like a human aspect to it too. We're all human. We still got to take
Mhm.
our time. We still got to figure out our stuff. We have our different paths. And yeah, thank you first off again to talking about this. I know this is a hard topic to talk about for people.
No, I mean, if I think if honestly, a lot of people do go through this, and I think this conversation is important. I think, I really thank you and appreciate you for having this conversation. I feel like we can reach so many people and people that go through this struggle because I've personally been through it. I know how tough it is, and the first thing you need is someone to tell you that it's going to be okay. And
Yeah.
I think that's what this conversation is all about. So yeah, I appreciate you for having this
No.
conversation. Yeah,
If you don't mind, let's dive into like your first attempt.
sure.
What exactly were you doing leading up to that first attempt? And what exactly didn't you do?
Yeah, a great question. So for the first attempt, again, I think my biggest struggle was not being organized, not having a schedule.
Okay.
Uh, I did actually try to get a tutor and all the stuff that people tend to do on my first try. And I kind of was like, hey, like, can you help me make a schedule? So I reached out to them and they made me a schedule, but the issue was like it was so hard to follow because someone else made it for me. And I was like, this doesn't work for me. The amount of questions they're telling me to do and there's barely any breaks. Like it wasn't working for me. And I kind of just eventually a weekend was like, I'm not gonna.
Was your bag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, the schedule is like a little much for me. I don't think I can follow it completely. And I started doing my own thing. I started doing UWorld based on, what I felt I was weak on, and just eventually it became a bunch of random sets of questions every day. Just keep spamming the mixed random questions.
Mm,
And I thought I was serving myself well doing that because that's how the test was going to be. But I also didn't realize the fact that I have to learn everything in a systematic way too. So emulating the test is important, but you also have to find a way to cover at least the bare basics of everything because you just have to pass step one.
yeah,
And if I was more organized in my approach, going system by system, trying to spend at least 2 to 3 days per system during my 6 week period, I think I would have been in a great shape to probably, pass this thing. But it was, I think, lack of organization really was the limiting factor my first time. And that I did improve that the second time, though. I sat down, I was like, okay, this is tough. At least it took me a week, but I was like, I know this is tough and you haven't been doing good mentally, but the thing you can do for yourself right now is realize that you have to move on.
mm,
Like there's no point staying behind and saying like, yo, like I'm just not gonna work on anything. I'm just gonna give up. I think you have to realize that, sitting down and just making a schedule for yourself will be the first like will honestly be like a stepping stone for you to get forward, get moving because it's the first thing you do. You're like, okay, like I know like it's like I do not want to do this right now, create a schedule and start working on stuff. But once you actually start doing it, you will see the reward and it'll honestly be like yeah, like it'll be like that step you need to like say, okay, I'm gonna take these further steps now and I'm gonna get to where I need to be for my second attempt.
gotcha.
So, staying organized and creating a schedule for yourself is key. So,
Did you do all of your world your first attempt?
uh, my first attempt, I only did like 60%. So that's also, I guess, a second factor that you bring up. I for my second attempt, I kind of redid everything in terms of what I did on my first attempt, plus trying to get at least 30% more of the question. So I ended up being at 90% my second time. And I think that gave me like the exposure I needed to these questions and the question types
Yeah.
to kind of, have a better understanding of everything.
Okay.
And actually, there's one more program I do want to, I kind of do want to shout them out because they really helped me.
Uh,
And again, like it's not, they're not, I'm not being like, I'm not being paid to promote or anything. Like this is an honest,
yeah.
honest review. I think if you guys search up on Instagram, I think they're called, his name is Dr. Lopez. He's a USMLE tutor.
Okay.
And he kind of goes through, he has like these rapid review sessions that are 4 or 5 weeks long. And he kind of goes through each subject individually. And he really just focuses on the test taking technique and strategies of like not double guessing yourself, kind of eliminating to two answers and kind of being at that 50-50. And he
Mm,
really teaches you how to do that. And honestly, I think if you're looking for some way to improve your test taking skills, definitely go through him. And I can share the link with Karthik after this, and he can kind of share it with you guys. So I think that might be a really helpful resource for a lot of people. And I was honestly struggling to find a mentor, find a tutor, but he really, helped me out. So
okay.
ish.
Okay.
Just want to shout him out too. Yeah.
Did you take practice test like for your first attempt? And how about second? Like, did you change it up?
Uh, yeah, so the first attempt I took I took like 2 or 3 practice tests already. So my 2 or 3 of my NBMEs were in my first attempt.
Were you
Uh,
passing?
I was passing for I think So for the three of them that I had, like I started off at like 40. My first test was like 42, 43%. Like pretty much anyone taking their first NBME, it was like a diagnostic tool for me.
Mm.
And then my second test, it was always like a steady gain. So like I think I was around like 53% on my second test. And eventually I got to like, a higher score, but it gave me like a 90. My last test was like pretty high chance of passing, like a 93 or 92%. But my
Mm.
school was telling me, no, you have to wait till it's like 99, right?
Oh, yeah, they need
And
that for their credentials.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And I mean, I think there's some validity to it. I think I was at a point where I felt ready, but at the same time, it was like, I don't think I was exposed to much. And on top of that, you know how predictive the NBMEs are. So it's like, I think if I had listened to the NBME prediction a little bit more, maybe postpone it a week, try to get it to that 98 or 99, because that's where I was at my second attempt.
Mhm.
Uh, I think maybe the first attempt would have been a different story.
Mhm.
But always listen to your NBMEs. I kind of, I learned this the hard way with my first attempt, the second attempt. But if you guys are out there, even if it's your first attempt, I think you guys need to listen to your NBMEs. If they're telling you you're not even like, if they're telling you you're below 95% chance of passing, I personally would not risk it. I think it's a great thing and you're making progress, but if you kind of push the course maybe a week or 2 weeks longer, I think you'll be able to see the results that you do want to see with your
Mhm.
step. Yeah.
True. Okay.
hmm
And then second attempt, I'm assuming you waited till that like 99%.
Yeah, yeah. I pretty much waited till it gave me that 99% chance of passing.
Okay.
And I think that is because we hear it all the time, and I think if you guys look online and read about this, NBMEs are such a like people tend to score really close to their NBME averages.
Yeah.
So whenever you're doing your practice test and you see what you kind of do at the end, provided you guys are like, following the test, taking the way kind of the environment that you're taking the step one and you're trying to emulate that at home, your NBME scores should be very predictive of how you do. And I would, definitely listen to them.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mhm.
Did you do anything else, like any podcasts or anything else?
Uh, like listen to podcasts and all
Yeah,
that.
this is step one podcast.
I I tried Divine. I like Divine too. Divine was a
It was
great
good.
resource.
Good.
Yeah, he kind of goes through everything in a way that's like a rapid review kind of thing. So
Yeah.
he kind of goes through a topic and he kind
Mhm.
of like, yeah, it's like very like rapid review. If you guys need something to kind of cover a lot of material in a little bit or to even test your knowledge, I think Divine is the place to go
Okay.
for sure.
You do Anki as well?
I didn't do Anki,
Didn't
and I think there's people, it's a very individualized thing. I think there's some people where Anki works for you. I think you should definitely do Anki. I just think for me it's hard because I had to like stay the course with Anki. I tried doing it for a couple of weeks, but my cards kept building up and I was like I don't think I'm learning this way and I think it's honestly for me, it didn't really work, but if Anki works for you, I would recommend continue using it because it's a great way to learn those facts and have things memorized that you need to have memorized.
Mm.
Um, but more important than Anki, in my opinion, especially through my second attempt, was you doing your old questions and reviewing them at the end. Trying to have those, write down notes in your either your
Mm.
UWorld notebook or make UWorld flashcards and
Mhm.
kind of go through them at the end of the day, maybe. Like, it doesn't even have to be like an hour or whatever. Like, just 30 minutes, go through your flashcards, go through your notes,
Mhm.
kind of recap what you learned throughout the day with your UWorld.
Did you
And
keep up with your old reviews from like the previous days too?
so I tried my best. I think that was more so like towards the end of the week, maybe on a Friday.
Mm.
I would spend more time just going through my old notes on my old cards,
Mhm.
and trying to see, kind of review everything that I learned that week.
Mhm.
So it was definitely, it was an experiment. I think I tried Anki for a little bit, then I switched over to UWorld, made my own flashcards and stuff, and I think I found the latter, to be more helpful for me.
How'd you study micro and farm then without Anki? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, yeah, good question. I think it was just a lot of repetition with this with you, and I think I kind of like I took every UWorld question as like, okay, this is trying to teach me a concept, and it's trying to get at something, it's trying to get at some micro or farm concept.
Mhm.
And you kind of just analyze the patterns in the question, like, okay, like there's certain keywords, certain things that they want you to point to, be like, this is like this is Staph aureus, or this is, the other bugs that we have, like more Excella. Like there's different clues that they give you in the question, and if you see the questions enough, I
Uh,
think you'll be in good shape for both farm and
mhm.
micro. I mean, that's my personal experience with it. I think if you guys use like Anki or any other way to learn these things, that might be a better approach than what I did. I just couldn't get to stay on top of Anki. That's why I didn't
No,
use
no,
that.
there's a lot of people that say to me all the time, they're like, I can't do Anki. So I'm always like wondering, like, what's the best way to tell them to study for this stuff? And you're saying just UWorld over and over.
Pretty much like, yeah, I would say repeat UWorld questions, like especially focus, do at least one time a day for one of your blocks, do like 20 questions of micro and 20 questions of farm every day, at
Mhm.
least at some point while you're doing your other UWorld questions. Yeah, just to kind of make sure that you cover your ground, because UWorld actually does a great job covering both those subjects in a way that's question based. And ultimately that's going to help you, right? Because step one, you're going to have these questions come at you that are like, they have the similar format. And if you see that and you're exposed to that early on, you'll kind of be able to catch on to the patterns that these test makers like to throw at you.
Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Anything else you did in your study? I know you said that
Yeah.
Dr. Lopez course for 4 to 5 weeks, right?
Yeah, yeah. He does a rapid review. Sometimes it's 4 weeks, sometimes it's 8 weeks, but either way, whenever he does it, he can cover as much in either of them. And I actually did for my first time I used him, and I just, I mean, it wasn't helpful at that time, maybe because I was also trying to learn things on the side and it was just not organized. But when I had found a way to kind of organize my day so that I could watch his stuff in the morning and then kind of do my thing in the afternoon in terms of UOld questions and everything that I had to do, I think that was a better approach.
Like,
Because you kind of apply those testing
mm,
techniques that it tells you in the morning, whatever. And then you kind of apply them to your own questions. Like, oh, this actually works, like
yeah,
kind of get down, the goal ultimately, get down to 50-50. And
mm,
if you're unsure, you go with your gut feeling, obviously. Whatever your gut says initially, just go with it. And if you're unsure ever and it's really between two, you go with the bottom answer, right? That's how these test takers like to do things. Like if it's like A and D and you're like, man, it could be either one of these,
uh,
it doesn't hurt to just go for the bottom answer and move on. Because ultimately you want to get through these blocks
yeah,
as efficiently as possible. And if you don't know a question, you can even flag it, move on and then come back when you have more time and
yeah,
individually focus on these questions and see, okay, like now that I have all this time, like 15 minutes left at the end of my block,
mm,
like I don't have the pressure of time on my mind. I can look at this question and be like, okay, like what
mm,
do I remember? Like what, you kind of you get more time to answer the question. You feel less pressured. You're more likely to get it right.
yeah.
So and that's just like a tidbit of what he really teaches and emphasizes in terms of following your gut. And I would recommend, if you struggle with test taking skills and techniques and just easy ways to remember stuff, because he has a lot of memory hooks too, you can go to him and kind of look at his program. It is paid. You do have to. It's not a free program by any means, but it's definitely worth the money, I think, to kind of look into his stuff. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Last thing, do you have any advice for someone? Let's say
yeah.
someone's about to take their first attempt, they don't know what they're doing. Someone's on
Yeah.
their second attempt, someone's on their third attempt.
Mhm.
What have you learned from this whole process? Like boil it down into a few sentences. What would you say to someone? If I'm the
Yeah,
student.
yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey. Like I I can't tell you how much I've struggled mentally with this. And the first attempt not going the way that I wanted it to was honestly like was so it was painful. Like I'm not gonna lie, it was I like it was very hard and difficult to process it at least for like a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But I think if I had told myself at that time, if I had like taken the initiative to like just say, okay, like yeah, it happened, like and it's not because everything would have been delayed. It's like, oh my God, like you're thinking all these things, but you also have to realize that you're at this point because of your hard work.
Mm.
You got to medical school because of your hard work, and you're smart and you're capable. And like I feel like if you tell yourself that and kind of dust yourself off, get to work, it's easier said than done. And I honestly I've been through it myself, so I know, but you just have to I think that's what it'll be so valuable for you at the end of the day because you're in this for the long haul. There's gonna be days when you're a doctor in the future, and I know everyone watching here, you're gonna get there. You're gonna be practicing. You're gonna be a doctor. There's not a doubt in my mind that that's gonna happen. And when you're going through everyday struggles, there's gonna be ups and downs, even when you practice. And this is a good gauge of who you are as a character, who you are, right? Kind of like if you take this opportunity to grow from it and try to retake step one and say I can do this, like you have, then that'll serve you well in the long haul. And I think ultimately it will really speak to the person that you are. So whoever's watching it, I can tell you right now, you have to, I think it's hard and it's difficult to take that step one fail the first time, but dust yourself off, get to work. I know it sounds like a tough message, but if you're not going to do it, no one else is going to do it for you, right? And ultimately, you will get to the point where you're like, yes, like I can do this. And you learned a lot your first time. When you took it, when you did your first dedicated, you learned a lot more than you thought you did. And the result, you might say like, oh, the result didn't say that, like I failed my test. But you can build, I feel like building on that first time is what's going to help you on the second time. Like whatever you learned the first time, it is in your mind. You just have to refine it and also learn new things the second time, and you'll be okay. So, uh, my main message is ultimately do not give up. Do not think this is the end of the world. If you need time to process it, you do take that. You should take that time,
Mhm.
whether it's a week or 2 weeks. I think you should take that time to think and retrospect and take the take the time to be like, okay, how am I going to approach this differently? What did I do the first time that kind of held me back?
Mhm.
And work to address those things. Create a list if you have to, pros and cons. What did I do last time? Create a list and analyze the cons, especially be like, okay, how I will work to address each of these in a different way because ultimately if we address our weaknesses that way in a clear and concise way, we're going to be able to, get past any challenge in our lives, right? And it's it can be a big setback and it could feel like it's the end of the world, but trust me, like a lot of people go through it. I know a lot of doctors that failed step one the first time. I know a lot of people that like their family members are doctors and they didn't pass the first time either. And they're still practicing and still doing amazing. And it speaks volumes to the character of the career that we're in and
Yeah, it
like,
does.
the people that are part of that career. So don't give up, guys. Keep fighting. So that's what my message is.
Thank you, Samir. That's a very good message. I think this is gonna hit hard for a lot of people. A lot
Yes,
of people don't talk about the mental struggles to deal with it and how to mentally overcome it, because that's kind of the main key to success. You got to mentally just understand the process and never give up, regardless of whatever happens.
never give up. That's the main thing. And easier said than done. I've been through the mental struggle. I know you guys watching are like are maybe you guys just got your result recently or it's been a while. The pain, the hardship never goes away where you're just like, oh man, like like what like what happened? Like how could I have not gotten over the mark? Like I was so close, this and that. Like you will feel that way. And I was, if you look at my test result, like I was really close. I was like it was barely a centimeter's difference from the line to pass. And you think that's the end of the world, but ultimately you just have to reshape your mind, reframe it in terms and turn this negative into like a positive experience for you. Be like, how can I improve? How can I get better? And ultimately, how can this make me into a better person than I am now? Because every time you struggle in life, it's a moment for you to be the better version of yourself.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I know I feel like, this might sound cheesy to some people, but it is true. It's
it,
true. And struggle is what defines all of us.
yeah.
So
Every struggle
ultimately,
makes
yeah,
yeah.
exactly, exactly. So just keep the grind moving, keep moving forward, and you'll get to where you want to be.
Yeah. Very well
Okay.
said, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you.
No, no, thank you, Karthik, for hosting this, and
Yeah, yeah. Good. It's very good to, get the insights, dive in deep and help other people. Always the best.
and I hope I was able to, help anybody that was going through this and, being kind of, if you're at that point, whatever mental stage or whatever point in the journey you're on, like I hope that I was able to help you.
You
Yeah.
did. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you for
oh,
joining.
thank you. Thank you.
So there you go. We had an interview with Mr. Sumer. He's a great guy. He's an MD student, and you got to see exactly what his thoughts were right after failing, how he went down so much, and how he brought himself back up. Privately, he told me some things outside of step one, failing that happened to him at the same time too. Man's dealt with a lot, but much respect to him for bringing himself back up and keep pushing forward for a second attempt. And this is just motivation for me and hopefully for everyone watching too, that no matter what happens, just keep pushing forward because eventually, in the long run, everything is going to be fine. So there you guys go. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want information on how to do well on your step 1 to complex 1 to any boards, anything in med school, go hit us up on the drjourney21@gmail.com. Send us an email. Go visit our website, thedrjourney.com. We have a lot of free resources on there, plenty of expansion coming, and a whole series for people taking the boards on how they did well after a detrimental exam failure like this, or just people doing extremely well from the get-go, getting extremely high scores. What's their mindset like? What do they think? And how you can do that too. So plenty of stuff coming. Subscribe to the channel below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.